LIR.com, 927 LIR.com, and YouTube. I am John Kalaboukas, the Bouk, my friend Paul Zubulake, Zoobie. So we're going to go right to the Rangers tonight because that was a crazy, crazy game. It's been really hard for any Ranger fan to watch because you have a team that has totally dominated the Rangers, yet the Rangers are ahead 2-1.
And that's all that matters. That's all. And goaltending matters, John. I don't know why this is such a huge surprise. The Rangers are, if their big guns are not scoring, it's a minor miracle that they're winning the series. It's all about the goaltender, Igor Shesterkin. He's just been phenomenal. And when they get into the overtime, they do have confidence, John, to win that game. And that's a big factor. So it's not the first time a team's been dominated in a period. And it was really the third period where the real domination was.
Yeah.
So, hey, we'll take it. I mean, after how many decades of not winning a championship, this fan base will take it.
They'll take it. The only thing that I was a little concerned about, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have a 4-2 lead, why would it almost seem like they laid back, like they're saying, oh, we got this in the bag. I mean, it's either that or, they were that much more aggressive against the Rangers. The Rangers defense is just really, really weak. And too many open shots. I mean, look at how many shots were taken. I mean, attempts. Just crazy, crazy. I mean, they got to get in front of these guys. I mean, why should these guys have an open lane on anything? It's amazing to me that.
I think it's John. I think it's more about Florida. I really do, and their ability as a team to put pressure on the opposing team and come back like that. They're a really good team.
Yes,
and the Rangers are beating a really good team with some timely scoring and contributions from, guys like obviously Barclay Goodrow and Alexis Lafreniere. Their expectations forever for Alexis. It's like Alexis, fantastic. I feel happy for the kid. He's made 2 tremendous plays in that game, rushing to the net and putting it away. Bobrovsky's got to make some of these saves also, even though that was great, tremendous shots. And the same thing with Goodrow. On as a penalty killer, 2 more shorthanded goals. This is really one of these. It's just like a crazy situation, John. And like I said, as a Ranger fan, I'm just loving every minute of it. I do have confidence when they get into the overtime, they can win. I mean, that's really a good feeling. But they had a 2-goal lead and they gave it back. But I give the other team credit. I really do. I don't think it's anything beyond that. We could talk about the individual performances, and we will. I'll let you jump in. But
no, the Panthers are a fantastic team. I mean, they're much bigger than the Rangers are. I mean, if you look at the size of that team and the Russians on their team are amazing. I mean, you just watch the way their passing is so precise. I mean, they're really, really, and they're fast as hell. I mean, they are really, really fast. But what bugs me is during this entire series, the stupid penalties with the Rangers is what's driving. I mean, this last game, how many power play goals did they have? And not only that, a power plays, but to have a 4-minute on that too, that was ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you, the Rangers they kind of got lucky there. A thing that they didn't really talk about in the telecast. We'll get to the telecast too. Because Trouba committed the first penalty, he committed both penalties. So instead of being 2 men down, because the first penalty was a basic trip, and then the second one was a roughing, cheap shot. So if somebody else committed the trip and then he committed the roughing, they would have been 2 players down, which would have been a definite goal. Turns into a 5-on-4. Not only do they kill it off, they score the Rangers.
Yep.
So
Yep.
in reality, they should definitely have not. There shouldn't have been a problem. So,
Too
that's
many.
all I could tell about the Rangers.
There's been too many stupid penalties with them. And one player who has not been playing well is Miller. I've been watching him. Man, he is not having a good series at all.
John, the
At
whole
all.
defense. I mean, Adam Fox looks like he's in cement when he's skating. So he had the collision at the end of the Cap series in the fourth game. I think it was the fourth game. Came leg to leg and is definitely impact. I mean, he looks like he can't move.
Yeah.
Uh, Truba's been a penalty machine. Has struggled as well, and as you mentioned, Miller on top of it. So the
He's made
problem
a
with
lot
Miller
of
too,
bits.
he's playing with Truba. So it's
Yeah.
that combination, which John, I don't know if you recall, we did talk about this, how the Rangers flipped their defense pairing right before the playoffs, and then came back and actually flipped them back. And that's something that we actually didn't bring up last week. We should have. That Truba is back with Miller, and then Schneider's with Gustafson. And
Mhm.
why did they change? Why did they go back? But I still think it's the opponent is the difference. This team could be the best team in the league. The Rangers are, I think, tonight, as you know, we are taping on game day, right? Right before, about an hour before the puck drops.
Mhm.
John, if the Rangers pull this one out tonight, that would be a beyond a miracle, honestly.
Well, you're giving a lot of credit to the Panthers, but what I've been watching with the Rangers in this series is some really poor passing by the defense. I mean, sloppy. How many times have you seen Florida just grab a hold of an errant pass and they have an open shot on I mean, thank God we have a great goalie. Thank God. How many great saves has he made, particularly in the last game?
They might not even have gotten into the playoffs without this guy. So he had it, and it's funny because he played great in the second half. The first half he
Right.
struggled a bit, right? And Jonathan Quick bailed the team out. So it's all about that, and they're just having this ability, right? It's one of these things. They'll lose games 5-1, and then they'll maybe win overtime games. I would expect Florida to come out blazing tonight. I, this is just, again, if the Rangers even can come within two goals, I'd be surprised tonight. Honestly, I really believe that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
this Thursday, John, we will be in the house, game 5. So hoping for a miracle to make it a 3-1, so we get to see the clincher. But I think I'm dreaming on that account.
We don't want a Zuby hex. If if it's 3 games to 1 and in his mind he's thinking, oh, they're not going to clinch because I'm here. We don't want a Zuby hex.
So you want it 2-2. You want it 2-2.
No, no, I want 3-1. I just
You
don't want
want
you.
3-1. You
I
want to.
just don't want you thinking that they're not going to clinch when you're there.
All right. Well, only
I
time
want you
will
to be
tell, John.
positive. You gotta like do some meditation and
Yeah.
deep breathing before you come to Madison Square Garden and say they're going to win, they're going to clinch.
Well, we'll get through. Let's get through tonight. So,
Yeah.
folks, this is, we are doing our show on Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend on that. Again, remember why that day exists. So we appreciate everybody hanging in there, watching our show, as always, on youtube.com, listening to us on spotify.com, and the world famous LIR and 927.com, right? LIR.com.
Hmm.
So all our platforms appreciate the support. I know folks are like missing the NFL. We could talk Rangers all night, John, but it's going to be each week as developing. But there's not really much to say. It's Igor. Our defense is, like you said, from not being able to break out of the zone properly to terrible giveaways. It was a lot of cringing during that game after bad passes. And they had attempts, John, but on net they didn't put a lot on net, and also a
Right.
lot of blocks. I know everyone's going to give Truber a hard time, and he deserves it, but he did block, I think, like 7 shots in that game. So there is that sacrifice that he does go through. So Yeah, just keep the good vibes going. This is the only game in town. Our teams, as we know, is just the Knicks' sad demise, John. There's not really any follow-ups there. The NBA, it's not even worth talking about. I don't think it's worth
Well,
talking about. It's a
I
complete
think we can talk
disaster.
about it, about the,
Well, we can talk about it, but it's a disaster for the NBA.
yes, yeah, it's the Pacers blew basically 3 out of the 4 games. I mean, they conceivably should have had a 3 games to 1 lead on the Celtics every single game. I mean, the game one was, as we both agree,
That,
was one of the biggest chokes that you have ever seen. Carlisle has been terrible at the end of the games. Call a timeout. If the guys are having a problem throwing the ball in, would you call a timeout once in a while? Just crazy. They should have been up 3 games to 1, which only cements my theory that if the Knicks were at full strength, would have defeated this team. They were ripe to be defeated, the Celtics. The Celtics look very vulnerable as a team. They're not playing very good defense. And of course, we know the Pacers don't play any defense at all. But I'm telling you, it's such, and I know I've been repeating myself, but it's such a shame that the Knicks weren't at full strength. We would have defeated this team, and I would have made the prediction in 5 games they would have beaten them.
well, John, what happens if the West loses? So the way you're lining this up, you're saying the West should win this championship.
No,
That the
because
Celtics are.
I don't think the Mavericks
Mhm.
match up well with the Celtics. I think the Mavericks are going to win. I don't think they match up well with the Celtics.
All right. Okay. Well, it's
It,
never gonna. We're never gonna know. They
we'll
never had
never
the
know.
chance. Being a team that is durable is a factor. They
Yes, it
had
is.
bad luck. There's no question. The durability is a factor, and Anunoby is proving to be a guy that is not durable. So as we talked about in our last show, the Knicks have some major decisions to make. It's way early, but that will be. I get this. That's going to be a little bit of a story, right, between the NBA draft coming up in a few weeks, and I guess whenever free agency starts. Honestly, I don't know. Is it like right after the finals? I guess I'm not sure
Yeah.
of the NBA rules. Is that what it is?
Yep. Yep. It's going to be in June, and I made a mistake last week, by the way, with the Knicks draft picks. It's 24, 25. It's actually the second round. It's 38. It's not 28. So they have 2 in the first round,
Okay.
1 in the second round. I made a mistake
Okay.
last week. I thought it was 28. It's 38.
So they have two first rounders. All right. So I think they might take two players. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, 38's, there's been plenty of good players taken at 38 too. So, like we talked about, this draft is deep. It's not good at the top, but there's a lot of good players. But a lot of these kids, they're projects. That's what it is. And you got to pick the right ones. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Well,
Uh,
you could actually add 2 if they decide to throw their names into the draft. Dingle and Ludlam from the St. John's were declared
yes.
ineligible, so they are not eligible to play in college
Yes,
this year.
the courts wanted no part of this case, so that's the COVID era is ending in college sports. Pretty much 2025 will be the end of that nightmare from a sports perspective. The nation's nightmare, John, is not even close to ending until we get some accountability. So Bouk and Zoobie taking a little turn there, but it's very important that we get some real accountability when it comes to this issue.
Oh yeah,
Rarely do we get out of the box of sports, but when it comes to COVID, and remember screaming my head off watching empty stadiums in New York and New Jersey about the absurdity of playing in front of cardboard cutouts at sporting events. What an absolute nightmare of a situation. And it leaked into our love of sports. I mean, really, it's a human tragedy, John.
well, what was even worse is when they decided to open up the stadiums. If you remember, this is before we started our podcast, and the Mets had, I mean, it was almost like they didn't trust the fans to follow distancing rules. So what they did is they allowed 10,000 people, 10,000 per game, and the seats themselves were strapped. Each one rows strapped. And people, oh, you have to sit this far away, and then the people behind. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Which
I
it,
remember going to opening day, and and it wasn't even my seats because that was, I don't know, that section was cordoned off somehow that no one could sit there because COVID will be in that section, but it's not going to be in the section all the way out in the left field stands. It was the most ridiculous thing, and you had to wear a mask, and you had to show your card that you've been vaccinated. It was outrageous when you
there
think
you
about
go. So yeah, and then it's been obviously now proven that the 6 feet rule was completely made up out of thin air, with like
it. Yeah.
most of the policies of the federal government.
Well,
Right?
think about it, how absurd. So if you're 5 feet, that means you're going to get infected. But if you're 6 feet, you're not going to get infected. But how about the people that went on planes where they're right on top of each other and they have all that air blowing on you? Yeah. So you're in an airplane and all this is not going to blow. Your germs are not going to blow in a plane, but outside it's going to. I mean, the most absurd. When you
Well,
look
yeah,
back,
yeah. Airplanes and subways is the only area of precaution you could. It makes a lot of sense, right? Yeah, outdoor baseball games made no sense, but yeah, I think it's important that people really just not be afraid to make their feelings felt about how ridiculous the whole situation was. So we'll put that one in the books, John. The NBA, like I said, this is, was it 3-0 in the West?
yeah,
So Mark Cuban winning its national NBA championship. I gotta go with the Celtics here. Just I guess
they
Cuban
will.
is
They're going to
just
win. Yeah, the Celtics
so
are going to win.
they're gonna win. So all right, well, I don't know if there's not much talked about with the winter sports. Want to are we gonna talk a little
Well,
NFL or is it
no. Well, a couple of other things in NBA.
okay? Yeah,
Bernie Bickerstaff was fired by the Cavaliers.
I'm sorry to laugh. And it's so absurd. What I mean, it's just that coaches who have good results get fired in these leagues.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's either that or he's not getting along with his players. I
Oh,
don't
that's what
know.
it is. Yeah.
I
No, it was supposedly Donovan Mitchell didn't want him as the coach, John, and that's it. Once you lose the star
yeah,
player, it's
but how does that? But it's still wins and losses. So Donovan. How about you winning games and getting into the next round? What was your excuse last year against the Knicks when you lost? What Bickerstaff was Bickerstaff's fault as well? I mean, come on. It's, I mean, obviously they had injuries, but still to blame it on the coach.
John.
Another thing,
Yeah, what
I don't know.
go, go, go.
There was. You'll enjoy this story. So they had a big article, and I love these players who try to rewrite history. So Carmelo Anthony and Baron Davis were on some type of podcast, and they were talking about Jeremy Lin, and they were saying to Lin the exact opposite of what has been reported, that Carmelo didn't want him on the team. He's saying, and Baron Davis is saying that they were begging him to stay because they said we could make you $100 million as a player if you remain. And Jeremy Lin, it was pretty funny. They got a comment from Jeremy Lin. He goes, "They never spoke to me about do." I love these players. They're trying to like polish up their image. And I'm saying to Carmelo, just keep selling your liquor online or whatever you're doing.
That bad
Uh,
commercial.
that
That
really bad commercial. But I love these guys trying to rewrite history. The same thing with Alex Rodriguez. I mean, he's always talking about he thought that he was friendly with Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter wants no part of Alex Rodriguez ever, ever. And there actually is a book out right now that I'm reading called The Yankee Way. It's a very interesting book because they interview Cashman and all these uh, different players, and they have a whole chapter just on Alex Rodriguez, how he was trying to undermine Jeter, and Jeter just did not want him on the team. It's a great book. It's written by Andy Martino. It's a
Oh,
brand
is
new
it?
book.
All
Brand new
right.
book.
Well,
Interesting.
that's a good. There's a good plug for yeah, Yankee book. There you go. A little early. I know. I mean,
I
oh
know.
man, we won't even go there. But
And one other thing in the
yes,
NBA is
yes.
Bill
No, go.
Walton.
Keep going, man.
Yeah, Bill Walton.
Oh well, yeah, of course. Yes.
Uh, big. I had no idea that he was suffering from cancer, but
Nobody did. Nobody. They kept it quiet.
yeah, they really kept it quiet. And it was a shock when my wife told me, I'm like, Bill Walton? I mean, if you look at his record, I mean, in high school, they won the state champ. His team won 49 straight games in high school. Then he came to UCLA. They won 88 in a row. He was 60-0 in his first 2 years. And they won, obviously, the NCAA championships. And then when he came to the NBA, it's just so unfortunate with his foot injuries.
Yeah.
The man had so many foot injuries. He won the championship with the Trailblazers,
Right.
and
Way
I
back.
believe the following year they were like 50-10, and then he got injured. He
You
still
got
got the
hurt.
MVP,
Yeah.
and then just he started blaming the medical staff, and he wanted to get out of Portland because he felt like that he had undiagnosed broken foot, which it's true. It turned
Right.
out that
Right. Yeah,
he
he was
was
right.
playing on a broken foot, and
Yeah. John, they have
so
that great documentary about Bill Walton, right? The luckiest man in the world.
yeah,
I'm not sure which network it was on.
I think
So
it was
that
ESPN. I think it was ESPN.
Oh,
They
was it
had.
an ESPN one?
Yeah,
Okay, there's
yeah,
some. It gets so confused which one it
yeah.
is. That was actually really interesting. Very interesting life. Just the real free spirit. And I knew something was going on in later in his life because he just did. He looked a little different. I didn't know he was sick, but there was I think within the last year it came out that he didn't have He didn't have money. Like there was a money issue.
Really?
So I'm not
Hmm.
sure about like I think it could have been related to his health insurance and what he was sick because he might just be some sort of contractor with ESPN. It's just hard to say because he
Hmm.
just called games. He didn't do anything else but call games. So I do remember that story came out, and I was like, how could Bill Walton have money issues? You would think that would be almost impossible, but unfortunately, it's possible. And something like that medically can really bankrupt you.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is, uh, you talk about a guy that is still considered one of the best centers ever. They still have him in the I think they call it like it was the first celebration, the top players in the first 50 years of the NBA, and then he was in the top players in the 75 years. And they asked actually Larry Bird, which was interesting, when he ended up getting the sixth man award with the Celtics.
Right.
I think it was 86 they won the championship. And Bird said that, and they asked him to repeat himself when he said it. He goes, Walton would have been one of the greatest players ever. And they say, you mean center? He goes, no, player. And when they told Walton that, he says, wow, that's a big compliment coming from Larry Bird. But he was a really smart player. I mean, if you look at the videos, and I had a chance to look at it again, and I'm like, man, he was some passer. He was
Yeah.
agile. He could shoot. I mean, he could do everything.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
good he was. He
I
was
mean, most
really, really good player.
most people didn't get to see any of his prime because most of it was in college, like you said, and the beginning of his NBA career, which is a long time ago. So that's even a little before our time.
Yeah,
Let's face it, we know Walton more for post injuries and hooking on with the Celtics, and he was still a good player because, like you said, he just knew how to play the game. Everybody seemed to love the guy. Very
yeah,
popular guy, obviously famous Grateful Dead fan, right? Famous Deadhead. He was a free spirit, and yeah, it's sad, John. It's always sad when that happens to anybody at that age. And what can I tell you? But
they actually had Rick Carlisle had a story because he was really sad that Walton had passed away. and he told the story about how he was dating his future wife. He was trying to impress his future wife. And he says, I really like to go see the Grateful Dead. And so when he told that to Walton, Walton says, all right, this is the guy you need to go see, the back door.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just tell him you're Rick Carlisle from the Boston Celtics and don't worry about it. So he went up and he told the guy I'm Rick Carlisle, and he ended up, they had like passes for Bill Walton and his wife, every single concert for him.
Yeah, right. No,
So
he's
Carlisle was
backstage.
wearing
Yeah.
a pass, Bill Walton, and whatever his wife's name was. It was pretty
Right,
cool.
right.
And they got to meet the Grateful Dead.
There you go. Well, that's the legendary Bill Walton passing, and that's we always we talk about this a lot. The old stars, not even the old stars who pass away, guys that were playing and when we were in our youth, and Walton definitely fits into that category. Luckily, people know him because of his his announcing and his kind of Looney Tune stuff. Now he could get a little bit over the top when you so sometimes I didn't love when he called the game, but especially when I cared who won, because he gets a little crazy during the game and they start talking about stuff that have nothing to do with the game. So yeah, it was always good to catch him on those West Coast games. Yeah, the Pac-12 going out with a whimper, and unfortunately, one of the greatest stars of the Pac-8 when he played.
Yep.
Those great UCLA teams, like you said, unbeatable. He lost a few games in college, and I think he played. I'm not really sure. Like when it's always like, when did the dunking era restart? Because it's incredible to believe that dunking was not allowed.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
violation to dunk the basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is just pretty incredible. I have to almost look that up, John, to see what the year was.
I used to like actually his announcing because, especially NBA, not so much college because I didn't really follow him doing the college games. But when he used to do the NBA games, I used to love when he used to criticize the players in the middle of the game. He's like, do something. Or
Yeah,
he used to just yell it out during the telecast. I'm like, wow, he's ripping them. And then the
unafraid.
players used to get upset with him because they used to hear, Walton says you're not doing anything.
Yeah, well, hey, sometimes you got to get called out. That's what makes it interesting to be a good announcer. Not like now. It's my God, it's the coverage is just I can't even talk about it. The NHL coverage has been a big thing. I don't know. There's a little more inside, John, but the combination of Sean McDonough and Ray Ferraro is getting flambéed on the internet. Ray Ferraro, believe it or not, played with the Rangers, but was an ex-Islander, so they got him in. And then Sean McDonough, which they're just killing him because he doesn't have any excitement in his voice, and he's a Boston guy. And which the NHL, to me, it's so weird. This is, I don't know if people or care about something like this, but Ray Ferraro is in between the benches doing the commentary. So the play-by-play guy's up alone. And in the Western Conference, they have Eddie Olczyk in the booth with the announcer, which I think is Kenny Albert, actually. And then they have a guy in between the booths. So why is the East get Ray Ferraro in between the benches and nobody up there with McDonough to maybe wake him up? I don't know. Have you caught that? What do you think about? Because I know that
No,
you don't watch all the games, so you miss.
I've been watching.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah, I know
watching
you've been
them.
watching these
And,
games.
and what's annoying me is this woman Kaplan interviewing the coaches.
Well, yeah,
I
that's what they're doing
that
now. That's not her
but
fault.
that's no. But why would you? The guys are trying to concentrate on the game, and she's coming up and asking these stupid questions.
No, but
Well,
that's part of the broadcast.
I know,
Yeah.
but Paul, they're doing it during like a
Well,
small break in the game. The
no,
guy
no. My
has to
point.
strategize with his team.
No, no. My point is the networks are driving this, and the league is driving this.
No,
It's
I
not Emily
understand.
Kaplan's fault. Okay, all right. Some of the questions probably could be better, but yeah, it's a terrible spot. You have to interview
I
these coaches during the game,
that's
but
what I'm
that's the
saying.
league
I'm
and the
not.
network. It's not her. I'm just,
No, I'm not blaming her for being there. I'm just saying it's stupid for her to be there.
of
The fact
course.
that the NHL and the league wants her to do it. If I were a coach, I just tell her, listen, leave me alone. I need to concentrate on my team. It's
Well,
terrible.
it's part of that's part of the money aspect of it. They have to do. You think the coaches want to do that interview? Are you kidding me?
No, you see their faces. They want no part of it. They want no part of it. You're gonna have this lady who barely knows hockey asking
Ah,
them.
I
I,
gotta correct you. She's good. She knows her stuff. She's been
I don't
no,
know about
John.
that. I've been watching these interviews and I'm saying to myself,
Now, yeah, she's legit. I disagree with you. She's been
all
around
right,
hockey for a while. No,
all right.
it's not being a woman. That's nothing to do with it.
No,
Because
no, no. I'm not saying that
no,
at
she
all. I'm just
knows.
saying I don't like her questions. I don't like
Well,
her
I
questions.
okay, you know, like but I'm just giving you. She's got cred in the hockey world that she knows what she's talking about. That doesn't mean
Okay,
she might be better. They should put her up in the booth with McDonough. Then she'd probably be
maybe,
more
maybe,
interesting
but
commenting on the game than doing those dumb interviews. So it makes her look bad because
right. That's what
who
I'm saying.
it's
For
impossible
someone
stuff.
who I don't know her,
Right,
for
right.
someone who doesn't know her like I do, and I'm listening to her ask these questions, they're foolish questions. They're mindless questions. So if you're telling me she's a hockey expert, get her out of there. Let her come into the booth or something
Yeah,
because it makes her look really bad.
I'm not going to go say expert. That's another. That's a bit of a leap, but she knows enough about hockey where she deserves a chance. She's been mucking it up. She actually used to work for Peter King, believe it or not, on his website when he had that
Oh,
Monday morning quarterback thing he was doing.
interesting.
And then she switched over to hockey. She was doing NFL, like behind the. I don't know what she did there, but that's her history. Anyway, yeah, you got to know people in that business, John. Let's face it. I mean, there's obviously when it comes to opportunities, it's tilted these days for that sort of jobs. But what I could care less. You're right. It's just a waste of time. But I still, John, with comparable to these names being on the screen still on the power play only. I mean, it's just how tone deaf are these people? I mean, it's just incredible that they continue to throw that out there on their telecasts. Can they just, it's so useless. It's beyond belief. And to think they had 5 names floating around during the regular season on the screen. And now you're down to 1 and you still hate it. They had 5.
And it's and like I said, there's no rhyme or reason. They sometimes it's there, other times it's not there. Imagine now, just think about this. Hockey is a
Help me.
very
Yes.
fast-flowing game, right?
Yes. Yes.
Imagine
Very
if you
fast.
had it in the NBA. Every time that a player had the ball, they're gonna have the name
Name
next to,
follow them. Right. It's the same concept. It's the same
right?
thing. Anyway, we've complained about this. John, the NHL, I've said this how many times. People think, oh, Gary Bettman, he's like the great. I wish he would just finally retire and let someone else try. You can't do. I'm sorry. Yeah, he gets credit a lot, I guess, but I think they could just. He's just due for a change. They're due for a change, a fresh look at their sport. They have a great sport. Uh, there's no question, and it's a shame because we deserve our home announcers for our teams.
I
They could be
agree.
on the national network and okay, they lose the New York audience, and that's what it's all about. So it sucks, but that's the way it is, John. It's not like it used to be, John. What can I say?
Why not have Kenny Albert on the East Coast
Well,
games?
and Ilchek is an ex-Ranger,
Right,
so
right. Switch
or,
them.
or yeah, well, they didn't want to look like they were partisan to the Rangers, so they gave us Ray Ferrara, and but if put him up in the booth. Why do they have one less announcer? It's for the East versus the West. Can someone explain that to me? But anyway, we got to move on from this, John.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. I
sorry.
know, I know.
It's a black hole when it comes to this stuff.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, so I'm fired up for the game. I don't even know if we even want to talk much about the NFL. We're going to have tons of NFL stuff in August. Well, looks like, Bouk and Zoobie might be taking a little hiatus in the summer months because we cannot spend 6 to 8 weeks talking about the New York Mets. So what's going on with baseball with Boot?
Mr. Zubulake, you are correct. We are not going to waste any energy, any breath with this team. Uh, let's just talk about today's game. First game of a doubleheader against the Dodgers.
Yes, right before we went on the air, folks, we got to watch the comedy of the Mets losing another game late. Go for it, John.
McGill pitched a fantastic game.
He did.
7 innings. Beautiful game. I watched him from the second inning on. I had a little bit of time on my hands today. Pitched a beautiful game. Had everyone, had complete control. Then the comedy started. The comedy started. By the way, your man Garrett, Cinderella story has almost over for him because he's come back down to earth because the past several outings he's gotten pummeled pretty badly. This one not so bad, but unfortunately Lindor I think forgot how to complete a double play, and we had 3 chances in the 8th inning to complete a double play. Of course, Freddie Freeman took advantage of that and drove in a run, so made it 2-1. Mendoza, I said it last week, is starting to panic because you're starting to see his lineup changes. They're not normal. People are in spots that they should not be in. He brings in Adam Ottavino instead of bringing in. It's just annoying. Diaz. It's just annoying.
He's unavailable? He's unavailable?
No, he was sitting in the bullpen waiting.
Right.
And by the way, even though he's blown, we know he's blown 4 out of the past 5 saves.
Right.
But the last time he pitched, he actually looked like the old Diaz. Even though he did blow the save, he looked like he had the fastball going, he had the slider going. And I'm saying, and I turned to my wife and I said, this is a panic here. He's not going to get out of this inning. There's going to be problems here. By some stroke of luck, okay, it was 2-2, and it was bases loaded, no outs. They were able to get out of that inning. What happens with the Mets? It's the same old story. Bases loaded, 1 out. All you have to do is get the runner in. Of course, it doesn't happen. And in true Mets fashion, they lose in extra innings.
On top of it, John, it was 3-0. And Tyrone Taylor decides to take on 3-1 and just watch one go right down the middle. All he needs is to put one in the outfield. He's got to be swinging there, no?
Yeah. They're very frustrating to watch. The manager, I think, needs a lot more experience. He seems like a good guy. He seems like he knows the game, but he's panicking. He's trying to mix the lineup. It's just very frustrating to watch this team. So a couple of things. So just to make things worse now, Raley is out for the year, Tommy John surgery. Senga is going to be out probably, I think, until the end of June, maybe July. Shoulder and triceps inflammation. He actually, they're trying to say that it was a translation problem. He meant what he said, that the whole rehab has been confusing, and he tried to put it in a way that he was disagreeing with the medical staff, and then of course, the PR department says, oh, no, he didn't mean that. He was saying it in a polite way. I'm like, what polite? He just criticized your whole medical staff, and it was lost in translation. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And then you have the thing about Lindor, because trying to blame his 190 average at the time with the fact that his contacts were getting dusty and wind was blowing in and he couldn't see. So now he decides he's going to wear prescription eyeglasses. And so maybe it's working. I mean, his average is up, but it almost sounds like the same old thing, the dry eye syndrome. Oh, my contacts, I can't see. Oh, let me wear glasses now. Really? We're going to start making these excuses?
Well, John, he got blown away today to end the game. I don't know if you saw that, right? He just flailed at a fastball on the outside.
Yeah.
And then what about his fiasco the other night where he's taking on a 3-2 pitch?
Yeah. Did you
What
hear
is
that?
going on with this franchise?
Did you hear that great explanation? Oh, because he couldn't get the ball over and I couldn't see the spin on it. I figured he was assuming the guy's going to throw a ball. He threw it right over the plate.
What a
Uh,
John, there's more stuff with the Mets this week, right? I know you've got it's not even the current Mets. We've got there's one that's related to the current Mets, and I don't know if you saw this, but I know the other one I'll let you take. But did you see the latest Tommy fan comments? Did you see
no,
that?
I did not.
Tommy fan claimed that he never saw he mentioned the outfielders never saw a group of guys work less on their craft than the Mets outfield. So I don't know where it was, but I read it and I'm like, I mean, he's shooting from the hip, Tommy fan. He's taking out everybody and he's got his own issues maybe, but I'm not saying we have to trust him as a source, but I don't know if you did not see that. I was like,
Well,
wow. I was like,
well,
that's a rough one.
he had similar comments uh, before he left the Mets and saying that they were the least hardworking team he's ever seen in his career, and that was last year.
And
Or
then, but then he singled out the outfield on top of it. I
wow,
guess that's
yeah,
the guys that he's hung out with. So that's a condemning Nimmo and Marte, obviously, the most lot because he was only on the team the 1 year. So it's
right,
definitely those guys. And it's not McNeil's fault he had to play the outfield. That was absurd, making him an outfielder.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know if that screwed up his game because he looks like he's washed up. So, John, we'll throw this as the rant of the week because this is so bad that it is not really worth talking about. It's so sad. On May 28th, I mean, John, I really see no joy in this. My under call is obviously
Yeah,
the Mets. I hope they come back and change and shut us
I
up.
do
That would
too.
be fantastic because it's only May 28th. So go out there, win game 2 tonight, and then put a streak together. Can you win 8 out of 10 games and shut people up? Because you're right, McGill pitched well. Severino's actually been pitching really well, right?
It was a great
So
pickup.
you
I
you
told you.
like both those guys. So
Manaya too. Look at Manaya. Manaya.
he's got to go deeper in the games, though, right? He's got to go deeper
But the
because
two I singled out, that were I didn't see were doing well. Hauser is not even in the rotation,
out.
and Quintana. I told you from the beginning he looked weak, and
Well,
uh, Severino it looks tremendous, and I hope they're thinking about signing him for the future. I'm telling you, the guy has great stuff.
if
And then
he's
you have
straight,
Peterson tomorrow. You have Peterson tomorrow finally coming back, and I like Peterson too.
yeah, and he's coming back healthy. He says he feels 100% better at an issue with his hip. So that's one thing that still you can hold. The Mets starting pitching has been good. Their numbers have fallen lately, right? But maybe that's because of a couple of guys. But they're at least that's one bright spot. But if this franchise is selling a youth movement and they're putting Adam Ottavino in games in big spots, why is this guy even on the roster if you're in a youth movement? I'm sorry, it's just, what are they doing? What are they doing?
And you're not letting your closer come in. It's just incredible. What, you're going to save him for the second game? What if there's no save opportunity in the
Of
second game? What,
course.
you're going to bring in Diaz in the seventh inning to
Right.
air out his arm? You needed him to close out the game today. You close it out.
I think they got to keep putting him back out there. He's their
That's what I
gun.
say. They have
Of
nothing to lose.
course.
They have
Of
nothing to lose at this point.
putting Adam out of it's not like the other guy's successful. So
Right.
Garrett has shown that he could throw multiple innings, but you're right, he's probably getting a little overused now, and that's the problem. And the infamous Drew Smith, is he coming back? Where's he? It's just the same old story. So
Yeah.
McGill, a bright spot. Once Alvarez, I guess, is getting a little closer. I mean, this Thomas Nido. I mean, John, this is just getting so. And what? All these guys in the farm, nobody is having a big year. The Jet Williams, the Gilbert Sullivan and Clifford, and all these guys. I mean, none of them. Acuna, right? None of them is having a big year.
No, no.
And the awfulness at Mauricio getting hurt, right? So it's just incredible. 2024 New York Mets, John.
And
Wow.
then on top of it, two things. So they finally, as we
Yeah.
spoke about, Joey Wendell ended up getting released. He gets picked up by who? The Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, I
That's
saw
the
that.
second. But then unfortunately, I feel bad for the Braves, Acuna especially.
Oh yeah,
I
well the
mean,
other
he
Acuna,
tore his
yeah.
ACL, his right ACL in 2021,
Yeah.
and now he tore his left ACL. And I'm like, you hate to see that. I mean, he's
Yeah.
such a great player.
Yeah.
And maybe there's an imbalance when you're coming back. You work on one knee so hard, and then the other one becomes, I don't know.
Who knows?
He's a tip-top athlete. He just tore both ACLs. It's terrible. But anyway,
Well,
Joey Wendell ended up getting released because they need an outfielder now in there. So he was
well,
with them for about a week, and he was gone.
so you got to tell, I thought was the funniest story of the week
Mm.
involving two Mets from, I guess, what do you want to say, late 90s, early 2000s, or maybe it was around that time, right?
Yeah.
So clue in the fans, there's going to be a couple of names, especially the first guy or the guy who's the bad guy in this story. You haven't heard his name in a while. So anyway, John, you got to tell this story about the New York Mets. Never trust your teammate.
And the ironic thing is, they're both from the same country, and they're both best of
Well,
friends.
who are they,
Andy
first of all?
Andy Chavez.
Andy Chavez.
Oh, if people don't remember him, he was a wonderful defensive outfielder, made one of the best catches in a playoff game you'll ever see, 2006, where he robbed Scott Rowland of a go-ahead home run, and everyone thought that the Mets were going to win that game after that. He actually ended up doubling off the guy off of first base. And his friend Melvin Mora, who unfortunately we had to trade during the 2000 season and brought in Mike Bordick, which he was a disaster as a shortstop. We could have really used Melvin Mora in that World Series. But anyway, there was a lot of things that happened with our relief pitchers, and we had to end up getting different people to fill in that spot. But anyway, Melvin Mora to his best friend says, "Give me $1.2 million." Promised him these wonderful returns,
Red flag
and
number one.
yeah, and of course there were no returns. And Chavez says, "Listen, I've been asking for my money back. He's a friend of mine. We're countrymen. Blah blah blah." So far, Melvin Moore has only given him $50,000 back of the
Yeah.
1.2. Good luck trying to get the rest of it back. But yeah, so he's taken his former friend and former teammate and former countryman to court to get his $1.2 million back.
And like you said, good luck, right? Because that
Good luck.
is definitely down some sort of who knows tunnel of money waste. And yeah, imagine doing that to somebody that you consider a friend. And people, man, you got to be so careful with your money, right, John? It's crazy.
Oh man. Well, there was some good news in baseball today. Some good news.
How
We're
about the
telling
Mets?
everyone about all this bad news. Angel Hernandez finally has retired as an umpire. But what was interesting, he said he retired, but when you really read the articles, it said that he had a negotiated settlement with Major League Baseball. Clearly, they bought him out to get him out.
Yeah. Well, he's that's probably the first time he's been mentioned on the Bouk and Zoobie show. So Angel Hernandez, yes, never liked. Yeah, it's just hard to comprehend the it's almost like he knew he was bad and he didn't care that he was bad. He didn't try
Yeah.
to get better. He just thought everybody was against him. And that's just the reality of his whole career. Because what? How long was he an umpire? It was a long time, right?
Over 30 years.
30 years.
And the funny thing is, I read that he had a back issue last year, so he only umpired 10 games last year. And one of those was being behind the plate. That out of those 10 games, he said he got 161 calls wrong. 161
And
in
then
10 games.
10
Incredible.
game. What? But it's not even yet. You're talking about 10 games behind the plate or just 10 games?
10 games. I mean, some of them
Right.
may have been behind the plate, but
Right. Had to be behind the plate.
cumulatively,
Right. Yeah. To make that's the only, as a third base umpire, you're not making that many calls. You can't screw those up. That's just as the home plate umpire missing, yeah, between the box because they obviously show you and how that sport has not gone to the automatic strike zone and just have the umpire call it like beeps. It's in the zone, strike, and then he calls the plays on he does the bases,
yeah,
and his job becomes a lot easier, and they're not going to give him a pay cut, right? They're going to still have umpires with the electronic system, right? They're going to
yeah,
be there because they got to call plays at the plate. So
yeah.
they're still going to have a job, and it's just get the calls right, and that's it. So,
They're using it
all right.
in the independent leagues, like the Long Island Ducks out here are using that whole system.
Well, John, the Major League Baseball, they got it. That guy Manfred's terrible. Another
Yeah,
commissioner. It's awful. He's
I
got that
agree.
cheap 10th inning thing still going. You said it today. I tell you all the time. A game it doesn't end after 9 innings. You just leave it off. And baseball's got a huge problem with that. So I guess I don't even know. Being Met fans, it's just baseball. Forget it. Yankee fans are still jumping for joy, right? And DJ LeMahieu's coming back, but I don't know. Is that going to be a good thing? Because who's coming out of the lineup? Is that a hole? Do they have a hole in where he's going to play, or he's just
I
not
mean,
going to play?
yeah, I mean, I see him, spelling Rizzo once in a while at first base,
Okay,
spelling, at third base. He'll get some playing time. I mean, listen, for a while he was an excellent hitter,
sure, of course, yeah.
but the past couple of years he's just not hacking it. But again, the Yankees have been getting tremendous pitching, really, really tremendous pitching. That was what I thought would hinder them is their starting pitching, and their starting pitching has actually been great this year. Really, really good.
Without Cole,
Without Cole,
complete shock, complete shock. Like your guy Gil, he's the
Gil,
guy, right? He's still
yeah,
pitching great,
Schmidt,
man. Yep,
Schmidt,
he finally lost yesterday, though, right?
yeah,
Finally, Schmidt
yeah,
got a
yeah.
loss. So
But
yeah,
they,
yeah,
but
yeah.
they look tremendous. I mean, Stanton is hitting bombs again. I'm telling you, he looks like the Stanton of old.
Well,
He's actually hitting. He's not hitting below 200 now. He's actually, I think, up to 255, 260. That's great
and
for him.
Soto's been great too, right?
Wow, yeah, Soto's unbelievable.
He's going to make a lot of money, and all this, dream that the Mets are going to be involved in him. Please, just stop it.
You
Just
think you
stop.
think Soto
I'm going to go to the Mets.
after having this fantastic time with the Yankees and the Yankees offer him they're going to come and drag his tail to City Field with the Mets? Oh, come on. Listen, if he signs with the Mets, it's 100% for the money. I mean, because why would you want to come to the Mets when the Yankees are? First of all, I look at the American League as being weak, much weaker than the National League. Just seems to be a lot more competitive and stronger teams. The American League, I mean, Baltimore is sticking with the Yankees. I have to tell you, I think what are they,
Yeah.
1.5, 2 games behind the Yankees, and the Yankees are almost 20 games over 500 at this point. That's tremendous. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting with Soto. If and he's already talking about how all the fans and they say, oh, they're going crazy for me. I said, yeah, because you see them waving Dominican flags from the Bronx. That's your people, man. They love you. They don't want you to leave.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. He wants to test free agency, it seems. So it's hard to believe that he's not willing to talk extension now. Maybe it's happening behind the scenes, and then it gets announced any day. You never know. So Yanks rolling, Mets stink.
We have
NFL, we didn't
actually,
really even talk about. I know you might have other stuff because we got to get ready for the hockey here. So
yeah,
what do you have? What else you
no,
have?
one surprising release, and they were saying that he was the equivalent of a Soto, if you remember, Victor Robles. Remember Victor Robles from the
Yeah, with
Nationals?
the
Yeah,
Nationals, Adam. Yeah.
yeah. So they just released him. Just released him. Still young guy, 27 years old, but somehow he got hurt. He's been trying to come back. I mean, this kid, they expected him to be a superstar just like Soto. I say the Mets pick him up. Pick him up.
Okay. All
What do
right.
they have to lose? Pick him
They have
up.
they have absolutely nothing to lose. Are you kidding me?
Nothing to lose.
All right. So is it worth talking about the NFL? It's just I don't. We almost feel like we should, but there's just I don't think there was anything remotely compelling. I just can't get caught up with
One thing,
the OTAs. So what do you got?
Antonio Brown,
Oh
who made
well,
$80 million in his career, claimed bankruptcy. And this is like the same old
it's
story. How many times have we seen this in our lifetimes about these players making ridiculous amounts of money, and then when their careers are over, they go bankrupt? And what's the usual excuse? Oh, my financial advisor. Oh, now how about the 10 Rolls Royces that you buy, the 30,000 square foot homes that no one's going to be able to buy from you? How about all the champagne, $1,000 champagne bottles that you've been drinking at the strip clubs? No, we want to blame it all on the financial advisors all the time.
yeah, no,
I
it's
just shake my head. I say, you made $80 million, and your bank, and he wasn't out of the NFL that long, and he's bankrupt. He claimed bankruptcy.
yeah. Well, he's got a lot of issues. He really does. Got a lot of personal issues, a lot of demons in there. I actually have a little sympathy for something that's reckless as that guy. But something, John, that's what makes the economy purr when we have people who spend every penny and some more. And when they make a lot, they spend a lot. So there's some, as opposed to some people who make a lot and never spend a nickel. This guy's the opposite end of the spectrum. So we got to get all fired up, folks. We're ready for game 4, Rangers, Panthers. Can't wait to watch. We'll see you guys next week. Who do you got to thank, John?
Again, as always, thank you to our producer, Zach Zubulake, and to our loyal listeners and viewers. Again, keep the feedback and comments coming. We'll definitely answer them in a timely fashion. Also, thanks to our community partners, Ronald McDonald House, Kids in Seats, and the Jackie Robinson Foundation. See you next week after the Rangers clinch.